for asking a simple question. But what no one knew, not the passengers, not the crew, not even the woman who struck him, was that she didn't work for the airline. She owned the jet, and she wasn't a flight attendant at all. If you find value in real stories told with clarity and truth, make sure to subscribe to stay informed with Real Father's Story. He only asked for water, but got humiliation. Instead, the flight was supposed to be short Denver to San Francisco. Flight 4883, early morning, half full. Marlon James had boarded with a book in one hand and hope in the other. Today was big a job interview that could finally change things. He dressed simple, neat, comfortable, no chains, no baggage, no attitude. Just a man trying to get from point A to B. 35 minutes after takeoff, the air was dry. Cabin lights dimmed. Marlon hit the call button. His mouth was parched. He hadn't had anything since 5 a.m. A woman approached slim pressed uniform slick bun. "Can I help you?" she asked flatly. "Sorry to bother, ma'am. Can I have a glass of water?" She didn't smile, didn't nod, just stared at him like he'd insulted her. "We're not a cafe. Wait for the service cart." "Oh, sorry, I just thought." Slap. Gasps echoed down the aisle. Silence froze the cabin. Marlon's face burned. "What the hell?" "You were being aggressive," she said, eyes cold. "You people always push when you don't get your way." Someone pulled out a phone. A passenger whispered, "Did she just—" And still Marlon didn't raise his voice, didn't defend himself. He just sat back down, ashamed, humiliated, burning with a pain deeper than the sting on his cheek. Flashback Marlon, age 12. His mother once told him, "Don't react like they expect, because they'll call you dangerous before they call you human." So he didn't react, not in front of them. 20 feet away in the galley, the flight attendant slipped off her gloves, wiped her eyes, because she hadn't meant to slap him, not him, but the moment felt too familiar, too dangerous, and she panicked. Her name Isadora Chen. She wasn't staff. She was the silent billionaire owner of the aircraft inspecting her fleet under disguise after a string of complaints. And now she just humiliated the one person who didn't deserve it. But the worst part, he didn't fight back, and that made her feel smaller than any slap ever could. She wore the uniform to expose corruption, but ended up exposing herself. Isadora Chen sat stiff in the jump seat, heart pounding. This was supposed to be a secret audit, a billionaire's way of testing how her company treated passengers. She owned Silverrise Airlines, all 37 jets, including this one. But today, she had failed the test. Flashback. 48 hours earlier, her board had begged her not to go. "You're too recognizable, Isa. Let corporate handle HR. This is beneath your title." But Isadora was tired of reports, tired of statistics, tired of being so rich that no one told her the truth. So she tied her hair up, put on a borrowed uniform, and boarded Flight 4883 as a fake flight attendant named Ava. She thought the disguise gave her control, but when she saw Marlon's eyes shocked, confused, too proud to beg, she realized control means nothing when you've just betrayed your own values. Meanwhile, Marlon in seat 22A, he didn't move, didn't drink the water someone else finally gave him, didn't touch the snack bag dropped on his tray like a guilty apology. He stared out the window, replaying the slap. Aggressive, you people. It didn't matter who he was. Didn't matter that he had a resume in his backpack or hope in his chest. He was just another man the world felt allowed to shrink. After landing 11:42 a.m. San Francisco, passengers filed out. Some glanced at him, some looked away. The woman who hit him didn't reappear. No apology, no explanation, just silence. And Marlon, he walked into the terminal with his shoulders tall, but inside, he was cracking. Meanwhile, Isadora in a private airport office. She ripped the name tag from her chest. Her COO stared at her stunned. "Ma'am, you hit a passenger." "I didn't mean to." "He's already filed nothing, no complaint, no press." "That's the worst part," she said, voice shaking. "He didn't even fight." "Do you want us to track him?" "No," she whispered. "I'll do it myself." Because this wasn't just about guilt. It was about restoring his dignity in a world that never gave it to him in the first place. She had his name, his seat number, his face, but she couldn't find peace. 3 days later, Isadora still hadn't slept. Her lawyers told her to let it go. PR said silence was safest. The COO said the man didn't even file a report, but her conscience screamed louder than the crisis team. She didn't want to protect her company. She wanted to protect him. Flashback: Isadora, age 10. The first time someone pulled her out of the first-class line, she was flying with her grandfather. The flight attendant looked her up and down and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, coach is back that way." Her grandfather had laughed kindly, not kindly. They only respect wealth when it wears a suit. Now she wore the suit, owned the airline, and she had become the very cruelty she used to resent. She tried to find him. Her team identified him: Marlon James, 32, single, no criminal record, master's degree in economics, currently unemployed. No lawyer, no press, not even a tweet. He'd completely disappeared. Until one intern found something: a flyer for a community job fair in Oakland. Marlon had registered. He had a booth time. Tomorrow. The next day, Oakland Job Fair, 10:17 a.m. Isadora stood across the room. No uniform, no security. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a backpack full of questions she didn't know how to ask. Marlon was there at a modest table, resume stacked beside him, tie slightly crooked. Still proud, still silent. He hadn't seen her yet. She approached quietly. His eyes lifted. Recognition flared, pain, confusion, restraint. He straightened, but said nothing. "Hi," she said softly. I know who you are," he replied, voice steady. "The fake flight attendant. The slap I didn't ask for." She winced. "I came to apologize." He looked away. "You didn't come to apologize? You came to feel better." "I came because I couldn't sleep," she whispered. Silence. "You don't owe me sleep or guilt. But I owe you dignity." He shook his head. "You can't give back what you took with an apology." She swallowed her pride. "Then let me earn back something else." "Like what?" "Your name spoken with respect. Your story told with truth. A door opened that someone like me has slammed shut for too many." And in that moment, for the first time since the flight, he listened. Not because she had power, but because she was finally using it right. He didn't want her pity, and that's exactly why she couldn't stop showing up. Marlon didn't speak to her again at the job fair. He thanked her for her time, stood tall, and turned to help the next recruiter. He didn't ask for her card, didn't ask why she was really there. He just continued. And Isadora, she left without a single answer. But she also left with something unfamiliar in her chest. Respect. Not the kind built from billion-dollar mergers, but the kind earned from watching someone stay dignified after being treated like they didn't matter. The next week, Marlon got a job. Analyst position, nonprofit financial division, modest pay, but meaningful work. He showed up early, stayed late, quiet, professional, and he never spoke about the flight. Not once. Meanwhile, Isadora couldn't let go. She sent flowers to his office. They were returned. She tried to donate anonymously to the nonprofit. The gift was declined. She asked her team to do nothing. Just observe. Respect the distance. But one evening she broke her own rule. Flashback. Isadora, age 26. She remembered being told, "Power means knowing when not to use it." But this didn't feel like power. It felt like shame. And shame left to rot becomes rot of the soul. She went to his office just once. Not in a limo, no PR team, no announcement. Just herself holding 2 coffees and a folded letter. She waited outside until he stepped out. He paused, frowned. "Still not over it?" he asked. "I'm not over me," she said. She handed him the coffee and the letter. "You never have to speak to me again. But if you ever want to know why that moment crushed me, it's in here." And if I don't care why he asked, then keep the coffee. Toss the letter. He took both. Didn't promise anything. Didn't smile. But she didn't need him to. She just needed him to know that she was no longer hiding behind uniforms, wealth, or silence. She was accountable. That night he read the letter, and for the first time, he saw her story too. He read her letter and found a woman who never learned to be held accountable until him. Marlon didn't expect to read the letter, but something about the way she handed it over, no pride, no plea, made him pause. That night he sat at his kitchen table, the city humming beyond the glass, unfolded the pages, and read words she'd never dared say out loud. The letter in her handwriting. "I slapped you because I was afraid of being seen. Not by you, but by myself. I put on that uniform to find truth in my business. But when I looked into your eyes and saw no fear, no begging, no submission, I panicked. I've always been in charge, always in control. But you reminded me of who I used to be before the money, before the walls, when I was still fighting to prove I belonged. That day I failed you. Not just because I hit you, but because I thought you wouldn't fight back, that you'd just take it. And you did. Not out of weakness, but out of restraint, out of pride. That shook me to my core. You don't owe me a second of your time. But if you ever find a space for forgiveness, not for my sake, but for your own peace, I'll be where I started listening." Marlon read it twice, not because he was moved, but because he was stunned by how much it revealed without justifying a thing. She never asked for redemption, she just owned it. And that more than any performance he'd seen from CEOs or leaders made him stop seeing her as a villain. The next day, his office lunch break. She wasn't there, no surprise visit, no hovering, but on his desk was a book, wrapped in brown paper. No note, just the title, "The Strength to Stay When It's Easier to Run." Inside the cover, his name, and a single line. "Thank you for not becoming what the world tried to turn you into." Flashback Marlon, age 25. He once stood up to a professor who questioned if he wrote his own thesis. That night he told himself, "I will never explain my humanity to anyone again." And yet, this wasn't explaining. This was being witnessed. Later that week, he saw her from across a cafe. Not planned, not arranged. She didn't wave, just nodded. He nodded back. Something in the air between them had shifted. Not friendship, not forgiveness, but something rare. Recognition. She thought he'd never call until he did, without bitterness in his voice. It came 3 weeks later. A phone call. No unknown number, no assistance, just Marlon's name flashing across her screen. Isadora was in the middle of a board review when she saw it. She excused herself without a word, stepped out, and answered. "Hello." "I read the book." Silence. "Thank you for it," he added. "I wasn't sure you'd keep it." "I wasn't sure either," he admitted. "But I figured if I could take a slap in front of 30 strangers, I could take a second to understand the woman behind it." They met again, this time on equal ground. No airports, no uniforms, just a small public park. Neutral. Honest. She brought coffee. He brought nothing but himself. "So what now?" she asked cautiously. Now he shrugged. "Now I tell you what, I couldn't say that day." She braced herself. "You didn't humiliate me," he said. "You humiliated yourself. And then, you chose to deal with it. That's more than most." I don't deserve a medal for that. You're not getting one, he smiled faintly, but you've got my attention, which is more than I give to most who try to own me with guilt. Flashback, Isadora, age 30. She once fired an exec for lying about mistreating staff. She prided herself on protecting people from systemic arrogance, until she became it. Sometimes she whispered, "Now I think I built a world so powerful, I forgot how to live inside it." Marlon sipped his coffee. Then maybe it's time to stop owning planes and start flying in one with someone beside you. The first real smile between them. Not polite, not rehearsed, just human. "I'm not ready to forgive you completely," he said, eyes direct. "I'm not asking you to, but I'd have coffee with you again. Then let's start there." And for the first time since the slap, there was no weight between them. Just a bench, 2 cups, and something new, taking root, not romance, not yet, but repair. He didn't want her money, her name, or her status. He just wanted the truth. Over the next month, they met once a week. Always in public. Always casual. No cameras, no declarations, no expectations. Just 2 people slowly building something they never thought they'd want from each other. Understanding. One afternoon, she finally asked the question, "Why didn't you go public, Marlon? You could have sued me, ruined me." He looked up from his tea. "Because that would have made it about revenge, not healing. And you think this, whatever this is healing." "No," he said, "this is accountability. Healing's something I do on my own." She didn't argue, didn't press, because deep down she knew he'd done the work she hadn't even begun. Flashback, Marlon, age 29. He once gave a TEDx talk on invisible labor. Talked about the emotional tax of being black, soft-spoken, and visible in corporate spaces. He never thought that one day the very people he criticized would come back and try to understand. Now, one of them sat across from him and listened, not to reply, not to fix, just to absorb. Later that week, she invited him to her world, a gala. Private invite, industry leaders, a $1,000 plate. He declined. Not my scene. She expected that. But what she didn't expect was him showing up outside after. Suit on, no tie, hands in his pockets, calm. "I didn't come for the party. I came to see if you were still you, after they praised you. And you look tired, but not fake." She smiled, the kind that hurt a little. "They clap for me, but none of them know me." Then stop performing for them and start being someone who doesn't need applause to feel real. That night, a walk, no destination. They wandered the city, talked about music books, childhood memories. And then she paused at a street mural, a painting of 2 hands, one reaching, one steady. "Do you think people can change?" she asked. "Only if they stop pretending they already have," he answered. She didn't reach for his hand, not yet. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hide hers. She once slapped him out of fear. Now he trusted her enough to let her in. A year had passed. No viral scandal, no lawsuit, no redemption arc plastered across news sites. Just 2 people who met in conflict and walked slowly toward clarity. Isadora had changed, not loudly, but thoroughly. She created a new department inside her airline, Human Experience Integrity, staffed by those who had once been passengers, not executives. She stepped down from day-to-day ops, began consulting, teaching, listening more than speaking. But most notably, she never spoke publicly about the slap. Not once. Because real atonement, she'd learned, didn't need a spotlight. Marlon, too, grew. He now led financial strategy at the nonprofit, mentored young interns, wrote essays anonymously about power and silence. And in his off hours, he sometimes met a woman in sneakers and no makeup who used to be the reason he burned with shame. But now she was the reason he smiled without needing to. One evening, the cabin she once fled from. They rented it for the weekend. No luxury, just warmth. Crackling fire, 2 mugs of tea. A silence that didn't ache anymore. It hummed. She reached for his hand. This time he didn't flinch. "You still think I came to feel better?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "You came to become better." "And did I?" He looked at her eyes steady, no fear. "You stopped hiding behind power. Now you're just you." Flashback the moment of the slap. She'd never forget it. But now when she remembered, it didn't end in shame. It ended in choice. His choice to stay grounded, to hold space, to offer a future neither of them had planned for. Epilogue 2 years later. A flight attendant smiled as they boarded a plane together. "Welcome aboard, Mr. James. Ms. Chen." Neither corrected her. They weren't married. Not yet. But what they had was stronger than a title. They had context, history, and a bridge rebuilt by mutual effort. As they buckled in, she whispered, "Next time I'm bringing snacks." "Next time," he said, grinning, "I'm flying the plane." They laughed and flew. This time side by side. No fear, no disguise. Just presence. If this story moved, you subscribe to Real Father Story, where redemption is real earned and never loud. And where power is measured not by wealth, but by how gently you use it.